Hi everyone. Hope you all are good. We are here for grade 9 math. You can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab, scroll down to grade 9 and then click on view all lessons. There you can find a list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter direct and inverse variations. The lessons we're going to cover today are identify proportional relationships, find the constant of variation, write inverse variation equations, and identify direct variation and inverse variation. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can note down the important examples and definitions as well. So here I am on grade 9 math. The chapter we are on right now is direct and indirect variations. So let's just start with the lesson, that is identify proportional relationships. Okay, look at this graph. Is there a directly proportional relationship? The correct option is no, right? You can tell the relationship is not directly proportional by looking at the graph. The graph is a straight line, but it does not pass the origin. So the relationship is not directly proportional. You can also confirm that linear relationship is not directly proportional by showing that the relationship cannot be written as y equals kx. Got it? So you have to check two things. The one thing is the graph is a straight line but not passing through the origin. The second thing is you cannot write it as y equals kx. You don't have a constant k in this one, right? Because the graph is not the proportional. The graph of a proportional relationship is a straight line that passes through the origin. Proportional quantities can be described by the equation y equals kx, where k is the constant ratio. Got it? Let's just start with the test questions. Look at this graph. Is the relationship directly proportional? So which is the correct option? The correct option is no, the graph is not directly proportional, right? The graph must be a straight line in passing through the origin. So for this one, the graph is not passing through the origin. So the correct option is no. Look at this graph. Is the relationship directly proportional? So which is the correct option? Yes, it is. The graph is directly proportional. The correct option is yes. Look at this graph. Is this a directly proportional relationship? So, which is the correct option? The correct option is yes, it is a directly proportional relationship. Why? The graph is a straight line and also the graph is passing through the origin. So, yes, that is a directly proportional relationship. Got it? Okay, look at this graph. Is there a directly proportional relationship? So, which is the correct option? The correct option is yes, it is a proportional relationship. Got it? Because the graph is a straight line and it is passing through the origin. So, yes, it is. Okay, look at this graph. Is this a directly proportional relationship? So, which is the correct option? No, that isn't a directly proportional relationship. The correct option is no. Okay, look at this graph. Is the total distance walk proportional to the number of trips to school? So, which is the correct option? Yes, it is right. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is find the constant of variation. Okay, the graph shows how the total distance Leila has walked depend on the number of trips which she has made to school. What is the constant of variation? So you have to find the constant of variation from the graph. So how do we find? We have to basically we have to find the slope, right? You can use any 2 points on the graph and calculate the distance, right? Here is the 2 points they selected, this one and this one. So for this one y 0 0, for this one x is 10 and y is 50, right? Just calculate the slope change in y divided by change in x. So 50 minus 0 divided by 10 minus 0, 50 over 10 is 5. So that means the slope is 5. So basically the constant of variation is 5. So when you have to calculate the constant of variation through the graph, okay, let's just start with the test questions. This graph shows how the total number of souvenirs Blanca buys is related to the number of days she spends on vacation. What is the constant of variation? So, which is the correct option? So, here is the origin 0 0, and here is another point x is 50 and y is 10, right? So, just calculate the slope, that is change in y divided by change in x. 10 minus 0 divided by 50 minus 0, that is 10 over 50, that equals 1 over 5 or 0.20 it is, right? So the slope is 0.20. Option number 2 is the correct option. So the correct option is 0.20. Option number 2 is the question is this graph shows how the total number of postcards Kira buys is related to the number of days she spent in on vacation. What is the constant of variation? So which is the correct option? So the correct option is that is 0.60. Option number 1 is the correct option, right? 0.60 is the correct option. Yes, option number 2 is the correct option. The zero point 0.6 it is. The graph shows the how the cost of Rooney's birthday party depends on the number of guests. What is the constant of variation? So which is the correct option? The correct option is yes, option number 1 is the correct option too. It is very good. Okay, let's just move on to next one. This graph shows how the amount of time that a receptionist named Akash spends on the phone is related to the number of phone calls he routes to employees. What is the constant of variation? So, which is the correct option? The correct option is yes, again, 2 is the correct option, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let's just move on to next lesson. Okay, the next one is find in write inverse variation equations. Okay, let's just see how do we write inverse variation equations, right? Okay, let me just read the question. In an inverse variation, y equals 2 when x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. Okay, so that is an inverse variation, right? You are given that x is 12 and y equals 2. So that is k equals basically the y equals k by x, right? That is an equation in that is the equation in inverse variation. So k equals y times x. So just multiply y is 2, x is 12. So that means 24, k is 24. You need to write down the equation. So k is 24. So y equals 24 over x. Got it? So the inverse variation equation is y equals 24 over x. This can only also be written as xy equals 24, right? Inverse variation can be represented by the equation y equals kx or k equals xy. The variable k is known as the constant of variation and it cannot be equal to 0. So xy equals 24. Okay, so let's just start with the test question. Let's see how do we find the equations for the inverse variation. Okay, in an inverse variation, y equals 2 and x equals 2. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. Okay, so the equation is y equals k over x and k equals yx, right? You need to multiply x on the other side. So you are given k equals x is 2, y is 2. So that means k equals 4, right? Or you can write it as y equals 4 over x. So xy equals 4. Got it? So the option number 2 is the correct option. Option number 2 is the correct option. Okay, let's just move on to next one. In an inverse variation, y equals 12 and x equals 12. Sorry, y equals 2 and x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So which is the correct option? The correct option is xy equals 24. Yes, option number 1 is the correct option. Very good. The next one is in an inverse variation y equals 12 and y equals 4 and x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So which is the correct option? The correct option is xy equals 48. Option number 1 is the correct option, right? Okay, the next one is in an inverse variation y equals 3 and x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So which is the correct option? Which is the correct option? That is xy equals 36. Option number 1 is the correct option, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. And the next lesson is identify direct and inverse variation. Okay, so let's just start with the next lesson. That is the last lesson from the chapter. Which graph shows the inverse variation? Option 1 or option 2, you are given two of the graphs, right? So option 1 shows the inverse variation. The second one is the direct variation. The first graph shows the inverse variation. Is a curve known as hyperbola that approaches the axis but does not touch them. Therefore, that is about for this one, right? These are the hyperbola that didn't touch the axis. The second graph shows the direct variation. The straight line is always a direct variation, right? There is a straight line that passes through the origin. So the first graph is the this one is the inverse variation and straight line is always the direct variation, right? Let's just start with the test questions. Which graph shows the inverse variation? Which is the correct option? Option number A is the correct option, right? A is the inverse proportion and B is the direct proportion. Which graph shows the direct variation? Which is the correct option? A is the correct option, right? Sorry, direct. B is the direct variation. B is the correct option. Which graph shows the direct variation? Which is the correct option? That is, A is the correct option, right? A is the direct variation. Which graph shows inverse variation? Which is the correct option? B is the inverse variation, right? Option number B is the correct option. Which graph shows inverse variation? Op- Which graph shows direct variation? P is the direct variation, right? Which graph shows inverse variation, which is the correct option? That is B is the correct option, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. So we were working on grade 9 math. The chapter we were working on is direct and inverse variation. The lessons we have covered today are identify proportional relationships, find the constant of variation, write inverse variation equations, and identify direct variation and inverse variation, right? So please make sure before the next session you can complete all the practice questions for the lessons we just did. That is your homework until next session, right? So if you need more help with any of the lesson, you can contact any tutor through the live chat button. They are available there during the shift timing, that is from Monday to Friday and 5 to 9, right? Or either you can join me in the interactive session that would be daily from 4 to 5. So if you have any questions related to the lessons we have just finished, you can please ask. I'm here to answer all your questions and confusions if you have any. Please ask questions if you have any.